Hey there, name's Alex, and I'm no economist, but I'm also not an aerospace engineer. Though I may be a mechanical engineer, but aerospace engineering is an entirely different field, and I'm not an expert there. I'm also not in any way involved in organized crime, even though if I wasn't the mafia, I wouldn't be telling you that now, would I? However, the two tales that I want to tell you today are very cautionary. The first one is indeed related to air traffic safety and aviation. As you may know, flying is by far the safest mode of transportation. By any metric you may use, by miles traveled or by people traveling, whatever metric you use, you're safer flying than traveling by any other means, and that includes even driving. You may be killed in a car accident as a pedestrian while you're minding your own business on the sidewalk, but it's much far rarer that an airplane will just fall out of the sky on top of you and kill you while you're minding your own business somewhere on the ground. That very rarely happens. And indeed, air travel is by far the safest means of travel, but that's not universally valid. That's not true everywhere you go. Particularly in Russia, it's not very safe. And I've been forecasting for a while that airplanes are going to start falling in Russia as a result of sanctions. As you may know, Russia has been hit by a barrage of sanctions that affect its economy in in all aspects and very severely. And one aspect that's also impacted by sanctions against Russia is commercial aviation. That includes civilian passenger airplanes. Most notably, airplane pilots in Russia have been instructed to use the brakes more sparingly while they're taxiing on the ground. That that's because brakes tend to wear out and they're difficult to replace. And due to sanctions, brakes on airplane landing gear are something that's very difficult for Russia to replace. Matter of fact, as far as I know, Russia doesn't produce any ball bearings internally, and with sanctions, it's difficult for them to replace uh, anything that they can produce internally from abroad. Their best option is cheap Chinese replacements. Whereas aviation is very sensitive to high quality parts, specifically replacement parts that need servicing. Uh, and as another non-expert recently said, if if the screws aren't tightly regulated, the whole plane might fall apart in midair. And accidents have started to happen. You may have heard of one, or supposedly we're calling it an accident for now, even though we don't know, and no one's investigating. Even though you'd like to investigate any airplane accident, for some reason, some accident, or at least one accident in particular, isn't going to be investigated. Although, why investigate something if you probably already know the cause? Now, I've heard some inside information about how airplanes are maintained on the ground. Say there's an airplane in a service depot on the ground, and it's being serviced by maintenance technicians. And let's say that an airplane has millions of parts. Maybe you don't need to be an aerospace engineer to figure that out, and everything has to be in working order, and nothing can be left to chance. Let's say that some parts have to be replaced every X number of flight hours, and a technician during conducting maintenance, one technician comes across a part has already gone 95 or something flight hours out of a specified 100 hours before it has to be replaced. And this aircraft that's currently undergoing maintenance, its next flight is supposed to last 5 or even more hours in the air. And what the technician will do when they spot a part that's near its service life, after which it will have to be replaced, what they do is they check to see if no one's looking, and they purposely break and damage the part so that now it has to be replaced. This isn't specified anywhere that it's supposed to be done. There are no instructions for this, but from what I know, aircraft service technicians, maintenance crews on the ground will do this so that the next time the plane flies, it will be with a freshly replaced part. And you have no idea how many planes fly with freshly replaced parts rather than parts that still have a few hours in them left before they have to be replaced, and that they don't reach the end of their service and exploitation life in the air. You don't want the plane falling apart in midair, of course. And no technician wants to be the one who left the parts still not having been replaced and let the plane fly with that part that's going to have its service life expire while in air. Because if an accident happens, no technician wants to be the one who could have replaced that part prematurely, even though it still hasn't passed its service life, and be the one responsible for the crash if the investigation finds that the crash is related specifically to that part. But in Russia, as a result of sanctions, replacement parts become scarce, and accidents are going to happen, and because the airline industry has a very low tolerance for mistakes. You make one mistake and the plane falls apart in midair. Now, another area that's also very intolerant of mistakes is mafia, organized crime. In the mafia, if you make a mistake, a blunder, or even do some things that's insubordination or questioning of authority, the other gang members or maybe the mafia bosses will make sure you're taken care of very quickly, or sometimes maybe not that quickly. Maybe sometimes they'll let you think you're off the hook. They'll let you think, look, mistakes happen, accidents happen, just try not to do that again, we forgive you this time. But later, maybe it's several months, maybe even a year, or maybe 2 months, maybe one day more or less than a month, or maybe sometimes exactly 2 months to the date, consequences will come. And the other gangsters will take care of you for your misconduct, your mistakes, or your insubordination. And how it happens usually, I've read this in a book, the other gang members will organize some sort of party. Let's say there's booze, girls, it's a little bit outside of town, but never mind, we'll take the car there and we'll go back with the car because, for example, Switchblade Mike is not drinking and he's going to be designated driver. So we go to this party, and when we're coming back from this party, all well and drunk, tipsy, we stop in a forest because someone needs to go out of the car and take a leak. And the rest of us also decide we're going to stretch our legs and go get outside of the car. And that's when the gangster that's set for quick retirement gets taken out. And apparently, gangsters tend to be naive. You doubt that, but even gangsters that have taken part in settling score actions before taking care of other gangsters who've been designated for taking out. They never know. They never know when it's their turn. And even though one gangster may have participated in taking out of another gangster that's targeted for elimination, but in the same way, they never know when they're going to a party that they won't be coming out. They won't be coming back from, and uh, and they still do it. They never expect when their turn has come. Now, why I've told you these two cautionary tales and what's the relationship between them, I'll have to leave you to figure that out for yourselves. And subscribe to this channel, like and share this video, because these two cautionary tales need to get out. Other people need to learn, and they need to be cautious. Don't get into don't get into airplanes in Russia because you never know when they may fall. And don't get involved in organized crime. Crime really doesn't pay. Thank you, and see you all later.